Greetings, my name is Monty Martin.
And I'm Kelly McLaughlin.
And we are the Dungeon Dudes. Welcome to our subclass tier ranking for the Druids in the new 2024 Player's Handbook.
Today we're going to be looking at the 4 subclasses presented in the 2024 PHB for Druids, and we're going to be comparing them against each other and seeing what ones come out best. There's a lot to discuss today, so let's get rolling.
Before we dive in, a quick review of the metrics that we use when assessing the various subclasses. We tier rank our subclasses assessing how they augment the base class in all pillars of play, including combat, exploration, and social interaction, although combat does tend to have a bit of a stronger weighting in the way that we rank things, because most subclass features are combat focused. We rank up the classes and subclasses against others of the same class, not cross-class. So what is an A tier for a druid, it can be different than what is an A tier for a paladin, for instance.
We also might suggest some multi-classing ideas or talk about it briefly, but it is not a core metric in our rankings. When we look at our rankings, S is the absolute best of the best. These are for the subclasses that not only build upon the base class in meaningful ways, but extend that into places where if you're playing the subclass, there's almost no mistakes that you can make in building it, and it's going to excel at the table in almost all pillars of play.
An A-tier subclass is fantastic and is really where we want to see most subclasses landing. A-tier brings strong benefits on all pillars of play and options that can be combined really well with the base class features, skills, feats, and spells that are available to the class. What makes the A-tier distinct from the S-tier and from the B-tier around it is that A-tier is adding to the base class, but not to the same degree as S-tier. And it's adding to the base class more so than B-tier is. All 3, A, S, and B, are positive rankings. They're good places for the classes to be, but you're getting more with A than you are with B, and more with S than you are with A.
And as Monty just said, B is also a really great place for a subclass to land. This means that they are building on the base class in meaningful ways. They're good features that can be useful in multiple pillars of play. Sometimes a B class will excel in a certain pillar of play, or it will be dependent on the build, the right campaign, or the right party dynamic, which can then extend the goodness of the B into a place where it might even feel like an A or an S if all of the cards line up for it.
Yeah, S-tier and A-tier subclasses tend to work in any campaign or any party composition, whereas B-tier subclasses can shine more in the right circumstances, but they're still good even when they're not in the ideal. That's where the C-tier kind of comes in, because C-tier is where things get niche. A C-tier subclass has features that are still workable, they're still viable, but they don't necessarily come up in every single adventuring situation, or they might require you to build your character in a very specific way that comes with a trade-off of some kind. A C tier can be good, but it depends on way more things.
And a D tier is where we sort of just say that there aren't a lot of great options here. If we give out a D tier, you may be able to find the one specific way to build that character to work. And sure, that's great. But most of the time, if you are trying to play a D tier subclass, you're going to have features that actually take away from the base class, or you have to give up something in order to use them, and they don't synergize well. Generally speaking, if it's D tier, you may not want to pick this class.
Alrighty, so let's kick things off with the Circle of the Land. This is a very spellcaster-focused subclass, because right away we're getting Circle of the Land spells, which is adding an expanded spell list of spells we always have prepared. But what's unique about this one is that it presents 4 lists: arid, polar, temperate, tropical. You'd think, oh, I gotta choose one of them. You do, but you get to make that choice every day.
I think that this is a really cool feature because there's some really great spell lists here, and packing the spell list that's going to best suit your next adventure is so great. I think that this subclass already from this first ability shines with a player who has the foresight to plan the next adventure. If you're playing in a campaign where you never know what's around the next corner, this is going to be a lot harder to choose. But if you're playing in a campaign where you are setting out on quests or missions and it's like, it's time to go defeat the red dragon in its volcano lair, you know that maybe the polar is going to be the right choice.
Yeah.
So foresight for this ability is going to be really handy.
Yeah, and I think that the cool thing here is that you get some spells that are not normally on the Druid spell list, like Lightning Bolt and Fireball, which who
doesn't want those?
Love that. You always do have to make that choice, but you also get a new use for your Wild Shape in the form of Land's Aid. This lets you expend a use of Wild Shape as a magic action to create a 10-foot radius sphere within 60 feet of you. Enemies in there have to take a con save versus necrotic damage, and you get to heal one ally. And it scales up, starts at 2d6, and then it scales up to 4d6, which is not a lot of damage at that level, but I mean, you probably weren't using Wild Shape, so it gives you something to do with Wild Shape.
At level 6, you're going to gain Natural Recovery. You get to cast one of your circle spells without expending a spell slot once per day. And once per day, you regain spell slots. So this essentially means that you get more spell slots per day. It's the equivalent of getting 2 of your highest level spell slots up to 5th level, which is the max. I think that this is a really great feature, especially for the focus on spellcasting that the Land Druid has. It's just great. Who doesn't want more spell slots?
Yep. At level 10, you get Nature's Ward, which means that you have a resistance, and you're immune to the poison condition and get a resistance based on your land choice for the circle spells. The only thing that's kind of about this is that the fire resistance comes in the form of giving you all the fire spells. So you often get, like, when you're fighting enemies that deal fire damage, they are often also resistant to fire damage, so you don't want to use fire spells against them. So you've kind of got this, like, opposites thing
I wish it had been like the opposite. Like if you take on Arid, because you're embodying Arid, you're resistant to cold.
Yeah, so it often means that, like, it doesn't square the way that you're hoping it will, right? Level 14 is Nature's Sanctuary. This is another alternate magic action that you can do with Wild Shape that creates kind of these spectral trees that give your party the resistance that you have, and also gives them half cover.
So let's talk about the Circle of the Land. I think that all of these features, except for that weird place where you can't actually cross-promote your spells.
There's circumstances where it might come up.
Yeah, right? But I do think that they're all useful abilities.
I agree.
There's nothing bad presented here. What I will say is I do think that, like I said right at the very first ability, this subclass benefits a lot from a party who pre-plans their adventures.
Yeah.
I think that that's where this shines, because your choice of what land you are embodying for the day is going to be probably the biggest impact on this whole subclass.
There's no one of the land spell list that is like the dead ringer.
Yeah,
right.
They're all decent. They're all like one thumb up, I think, which is great. There's always a few spells on each spell list that you're like, wow, I want that. And there's a few spells that you're like, wow, that could come up. And that's great. But yeah, so this is the thing. It's almost an A for me, but I don't know. I think because I actually think that, like, you could pick the wrong type for your day.
Yeah,
it's not gonna be a major detriment.
Yeah,
but
you still got all your other spells.
Like if you pick Arid and then a red dragon attacks you and you're like, I can't fireball this red dragon.
Yeah.
Like you still have all the cool Druid stuff, but it's like on the fence between A and B for me.
I think that one of the things that this subclass does sort of address with the Druids is, like, one of the biggest challenges of being a spellcasting Druid is that a lot of your spells are concentration spells. And so Druids don't necessarily have the biggest arsenal of, like, like for a wizard or a sorcerer, it's like you throw your concentration spell out and then you start fireballing. And so this gives the option of doing that to the Druid. It's like you throw your concentration spell out, and then you start doing all the
fireball or the lightning bolt.
Lightning bolts, right? And that's fine. That's totally fine, right? But we're just getting more spells prepared. We're getting more spells prepared, and we're getting more spells that we can cast. So it's giving us more versatility without actually giving us more power. And this is the thing here, is that
we love versatility.
We love versatility. But nothing that this subclass offers us is making the spells stick more reliably. It's not making the spells hit harder. It's not aiding our concentration. It's just giving us, you've got more spells and you've got more choices.
Yeah. I
love having more choices, but more choices doesn't get me to the A tier in this case.
That's fair.
Right? Don't get me wrong, versatility is good, but versatility is in this case is enough to get you a B.
I think that this is one of those cases where this is a B that I mean, I say this a lot, but this is a B that feels like a good B.
It is.
Like, this is a solid subclass, but there are 4 Druid subclasses, and we are comparing them against each other.
Yes.
And this one gives us some really cool options to play with, and anybody who plays a Circle of the Land is going to have a great time as a primary spellcaster. But I think all the other subclasses have
and
more to
I don't know. I think that Land's Aid and Nature's Sanctuary, they're fine things to do with your wild shape, but like,
they don't feel better than wild shaping, but because I'm a Circle of the Land, I might use them because I'd rather be focusing on spellcasting.
But they're both magic actions to do. So like, they're kind of the thing that you do on like round 3 or 4 of combat when you don't have anything left to do.
Yeah.
Right. So like, I just don't see using those as regularly as you might otherwise. But they're not useless. They're, like, nothing in here is useless.
No. It's not even niche.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. It's good. It's a B. The Circle of the Moon. Unleash the Beast. We have our circle forms. So now when we wild shape, we get to choose a challenge rating equal to 1/3 of our Druid level. Now, it is important to note, at time of recording, we do not have the 2024 Monster Manual.
It hasn't come out yet. All that we have are the beasts in the back of the player's handbook. So how powerful this subclass is will entirely depend on how many beast forms we are given.
Yeah.
And what they are capable of.
But we can still use backwards compatibility to use the existing 2014 Monster Manual and do a little bit of a comparison there, and think about what might happen. What we do know from the monsters that are in the back of the player's handbook is that we still have multi-attacking beasts. And what's very cool here is that what we started to see is, it used to be that many beasts had things like knocking enemies prone or making them restrained if that enemy failed a saving throw. But now those saving throws are gone and they just hit. Like, the spider restrains you if it hits with the web. The wolf knocks you prone if it hits with its bite. So if we're starting to see a bunch of beasts that apply conditions only when they hit with their attacks,
that's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now, you're already, as a Moon Druid, punching above the rest of the Druids for your wild shape abilities, because you can go way higher CR than everybody else way earlier. But not only that, the temp HP, which is normally your Druid level, you get in temp HP. For the Moon Druid, you get 3 times your Druid level. So you have 3 times as many temporary hit points as every other subclass when you're wild shaping, which is the core Druid feature. And your AC is going to be 13 plus your Wisdom modifier when you're wild shaped. So
many beasts have bad ACs, and this just fixes it.
If you have a +5 to your Wisdom, which you are going to be wanting to get to, then that means that you have an 18 AC.
Yep.
No matter, you could be a rat with like 80 hit points and 18 AC.
I love it. I love it. So you also get Circle of the Moon spells. Normally you can't cast spells in Wild Shape, but you get a bunch of spells that you always have prepared, and you can cast these spells while you're Wild Shaped as well. So those are Cure Wounds, Moonbeam, amazing. Conjure Animals, amazing. Fount of Moonlight, which is a new spell in the 2024 Player's Handbook that just adds 2d6 radiant damage to your melee attacks. Love it. Mass Cure Wounds. Love all these spells. These are all, this is like the bread and butter of what you wanted to have in Wild Shape form anyways.
Yeah. You also get the cantrip Starry Wisp, where if you're for some reason you're in a situation where you can't attack them with your Bear Claws, you could Starry Wisp.
That's a good point. So your beast form always has a ranged attack.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, Starry Wisp, you're going to prefer to be in melee combat when you're transformed into a beast, likely. But even, again, your 80 hit point, 18 AC rat.
You could be a starbird. You could be a bird that's just shooting people. Yeah.
I like the rat that's sneaking in with 18 AC and a bunch of hit points that's now shooting Starry Wisps at people. I don't know how, but it's a death rat. Yeah. So Death Rat is on the table with your Starry Wisp, and why not just throw
Star Rat?
And you can throw down a Moonbeam. Yeah. I could be a rat messing up this stronghold.
Yeah.
And nobody can find me. I'm in the wall.
Yeah.
So at level 6, we get improved circle forms. Now we add our wisdom mod to our con saves.
Not concentration checks.
No, all con
saves. Yeah. And you're using the beast's constitution score too.
Which they have pretty decent constitution scores.
Yeah.
Not only that, but we deal radiant damage now when we're in our Wild Shapes form. Right. So that's going to forego a lot of resistances and immunities. And we're going to be able to maintain the concentration checks a lot easier on our spell that we're focusing on while we're dealing radiant damage.
Level 10, Moonlight Step. This is Misty Step. But this is actually the Monk Shadow Step, because it's bonus action to teleport 30 feet, wisdom modifier times per day. You can also use a second level spell slot to do this, but after you finish the teleport, you have advantage on your next attack.
Perfect.
And
at 14th level, we get Lunar Form. We deal an extra 2d10 radiant damage once per turn when we hit with an attack in Wild Shape. And we can bring a creature with us when we use our Moonlight Step.
So we also have the base class feature that is letting us add elemental damage.
So we're adding elemental damage, we're doing radiant damage, we are adding 2d10 more radiant damage, and we can cast a concentration spell like Fount of Moonlight that adds 2d6 more damage.
So 2d6 from Fount of Moonlight, 1d8, eventually 2d8 from Nature's Fury, and then 2d10
at 14th level.
So basically the Moon Druid is 2d10, 2d8, 2d6, potentially 2 attack. The Moon Druid is like smiting / sneak attacking on every attack.
Yeah.
So the Moon Druid is just casually a paladin or a rogue.
I think
teleporting around, giving themselves advantage while being a rat calling down moonbeams, or being a bird or a spider. Or
this is the thing, is by 14th level, you're doing so much additional damage that yes, your bear form or your whatever other beast, high CR beast we end up with, hopefully, is going to be doing a lot of damage. But my rat is still doing incredible damage with an 18.
And your rat has pack tactics.
Yeah. So it does, by the time you reach 14th level or later, it doesn't even matter what you're transforming into.
That's a very astute observation, because the hit point, you don't care what the hit points of the base or AC of the base form was.
Yeah, your AC is going to... So in Moon Druid form, all options are viable. Whatever beast you want to turn into, if you want to be on a stealth mission, the rat is my go-to for stealth missions, because no castle suspects the rat is the operative villain, but I sneak into the castle as my rat, but I'm still a functioning combatant. It's great. I could be a bird. I could be a fish.
Yeah.
I could be a goldfish, 18 AC goldfish with 100 hit points, blasting you with magic.
For 2d6
and
plus
nibbling
40
you for...
Yeah. Like, it's a really solid hit. And yeah, so we do have monsters that have
the bunny from
oh my god, yeah,
from Monty Python and
yeah.
the Holy Grail was a moon druid.
And what's really cool too, though, is I just want to point out that just the few monsters that we do have in the player's handbook, the lion has a roar that frightens enemies. The spider has a web that restrains them. We have so many ones that just knock you prone, no saving throw. So you have your concentration effect, and you can become a wild shape form that is applying other conditions, no saving throw involved. Or sometimes a saving throw involved, but...
And the fact that you get this little list of spells that you can cast well in wild shape form. Mask Cure Wounds could just, if you're running low, top yourself off. If you lose...
Medic Rat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I bite you and now you get hit points. If you lose concentration on the cool concentration spell, you have Moonbeam or Fountain Moonlight to put back out there.
Yeah.
And you have Starry Wisp to default to if you can't get where you need to attack.
This is... So, like, the Moon Druid was the apex predator of 2014. And I think that I do want to take a moment to acknowledge that, like, Wild Shape has been a little bit reined in 2024 because you no longer take on the hit points of the beast. You're getting a bunch of temporary hit points, which is significant, but then you're using your own hit point pool. Yeah. And I think, as you very astutely pointed out, what this change does is it now makes the lower CR forms viable into higher levels because you don't care what their AC and hit points are.
Yeah.
But then we've just added a bucket load of damage onto whatever they are.
In these videos, I try to stick to the 2024 rules because if you're just coming into D&D right now, you don't really necessarily care about the 2014 rules. But I do want to point this out. In 2014, the Moon Druid was a bit of a problem. It was one of the best subclasses in the entire game, and it was the reason why in this ranking in the 2024, why the S tier is harder to achieve, because subclasses like the Moon Druid existed and they were so good that it was maybe hard to even look at the other ones.
Yes.
What we've done in 2024 is we've actually brought the problems of the 2014 Moon Druid in line so that they play better at the table and they aren't breaking the game. But
it still might be.
We took their robustness, their ability. So in 2014, you couldn't kill a Moon Druid.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was so difficult to take it down to 0 hit points. We've taken that and brought it to a level that is reasonable. But we took the damage that was always questionable of the 2014 Moon Druid and we pushed it up. So now the question is, I still think this is S tier.
This is one of the best gishes in, like, this subclass as a gish, as like a fighter mage, could be one of the best in the game.
The amount of damage that you're able to dish out, the amount of extra hit points you get, it is still robust. You are still tanking as a Moon Druid, only you're doing so much more damage.
If there is obviously Conjure Mana Elementals is a Druid spell, and people have talked about it a lot and its power. If there is a beast form that has 3 attacks in the monster manual,
doesn't the giant scorpion
I believe
used to have
claw sting? Yeah. So we could have some serious power there. But regardless of that, even with 2 attacks and this bucket load of extra damage dice that it's applying, it is really strong.
Yeah, and the versatility of the Moon Druid saying, turn into whatever beast is needed in the moment.
Yeah.
Like you have your, at high level, 8 choices. So you can pick a few great combat options, but you can pick your stealth option, your swimming option, your flying option. And if you need to be in your swimming option, your flying option, or your stealth option, you're still viable.
Yeah, and Wild Shape is so good for exploration and combat, and making it even better is just such a massive jump here for the Druid.
You're good in all pillars of play. Well, except social, you're not necessarily.
But no Druid is.
But, okay, here's the question. Am I actually amazing in the social pillar because I can turn into like a puppy or a kitty and everybody likes those?
Well, the one area where you are good is because druids are still the only ones that can speak with, well, not the only ones, but speak with animals. But no druid subclass is making a meaningful contribution to the social pillar in most cases. So,
S tier.
The Circle of the Moon is S tier.
It's S tier.
Yeah. The Circle of the Sea. This is one of the newcomers in the 2024 rules. So brand new subclass entirely. And we got a whole bunch of spells that are going to add the Wrath of Poseidon into the Druid, because we got Fog Cloud, we got Gust of Wind, we got Ray of Frost, we got Shatter, Thunderwave, Lightning Bolt, Water Breathing, Control Water, Ice Storm, Conjure Elemental, and Hold Monster.
This is a great list of spells.
It's a banger spell list. This is a 10 out of 10.
Even the utility spells in here are the ones that are most used in campaigns I've been a part of. Water Breathing.
Yep.
There's always a moment in the campaign that Water Breathing is the most important spell. We just went through that.
Yeah, we did too.
Control Water, technically a bit of a utility spell, but boy, have I saved people with Control Water.
Yep. Level 3 also gets your Wrath of the Sea. So this is a wild shape form that basically lets you have a 5-foot emanation that, when it appears and as a bonus action, one creature within that range makes a con save, and they get pushed away from you and take some damage.
Which is great. It's get out of my personal space.
Only downside, it's not a reaction speed. It's a bonus action on your turn, but that's fine. It is get away from me.
Yeah.
No, your bubble of no touch. It is a bubble. It's a no touch bubble.
Oh, you actually could be in a bubble.
Yeah.
It's surrounded by like waves of water.
Yeah.
And then at level 6, it just gets better. It's now 10 feet, and you also gain a swim speed. So now you have the 10-foot emanation, and you never need to worry about swim speed again, which I actually think one of the things happening here with the Circle of the Sea. You have a great use for your wild shape that isn't turning into a creature. Yeah, you might still want a fly speed creature to fall back on, but you can do that at 8th level. But you don't need to pack a fish in your wild shapes, because
you are the fish.
You are the fish.
But of course, you do get a fly speed on this form, because at level 10, fly speed, and it gives you resistance to cold, lightning, and thunder damage.
So now the two reasons why wild shape is most important is
for exploration.
Exploration is getting a fly speed or swim speed. You just get that, so now your wild shapes are probably best used for your Wrath of the Sea emanation.
Well, this is also the key thing. It's like one of the biggest restrictions with the Druid is that you can't wild shape into a flying form and also cast spells in that form, aside from being a Moon Druid.
But the Circle of the Sea can.
Well, at level 10, which is a good, this is a good place to get this feature. You are now taking to the skies. You have your bubble of get away from me. So you're and you are throwing lightning bolts down from the sky.
Man, I'm getting multiple images here of Glenda the Good Witch in her little floating bubble, just casting spells. But I'm also getting Wrath of the Sea.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I wouldn't be in a bubble for that, but if Triton was still an available species, and if you're I would play a Triton.
Oh yeah.
Circle.
And what's cool here too is it's concentration free flight.
Yeah.
Right. So if you want to take to the sky, you're casting lightning bolts, or you're casting
as long as you have Wrath of the Sea on, you have a swim speed and a fly speed. But why aren't you going to have Wrath of the Sea on?
You're always going to. And then at level 14, if you want to, you can give Wrath of the Sea to somebody else in your party. Or you can use 2 uses of wild shape to give it to you and a friend.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
2 uses, you're not actually losing any there. You're 2 uses for 2 uses.
Yeah. And again, it's concentration-free flight that you can give to someone else. That is really good. So I'm gonna raise a criticism that I raised with the land here as well, and point out for me why this is A and the land is B. Both the land and sea, we're getting an expanded spell list. We really favor the elemental sort of thing. But this is a really key thing here. Circle of the Sea is getting a use for its wild shape that you basically always want to use.
Yeah.
Right? It's a bonus action instead of an action to activate. So you can activate it and cast a spell at the same time, whereas the land has to make that choice. The land, it's kind of give some resistances to an ally or do a little bit of damage. With this one, it's no, get away from me, which is a thing that you regularly want in combat, and eventually at level 10, it's I am now the Stormlord. I am flying above the battlefield, and I am throwing down ice storms and lightning bolts.
And then at 14, it's we are now the Stormlord.
Yes.
We are the Stormlords. We are the Lords of Storms.
And so, again, same criticism as the land. Nothing is making the spells hit harder.
Yeah.
Nothing is helping you with your concentration except the indirect fact that you are flying, and so they can't hit you.
Yeah.
Right.
But the things that you get to do as the Circle of the Sea are much more exciting to me.
Yeah, and the Circle of the Sea got 3 damage resistances simultaneously, and the Circle of the Sea's spell list gives you cold and lightning focus at the same time. And so it means that, like, if you're up against the white dragon, your lightning spells are still useful, and if you're up against the blue dragon, your cold spells are still useful. And you have resistance to both.
I think this is an easy A for me.
Yeah.
I love the Circle of the Sea. I think this is a great Druid subclass.
Yeah. I honestly, especially given the overlap with the spells between the land and sea, I do not know why you would choose the Circle of the Land over the Circle of the Sea.
I think the Circle of the Land still has a really neat theme.
It does. I just think that the sea...
Yeah, so this is where it comes to theme over function.
Yeah.
If I was playing in a campaign that didn't involve the sea or anything involving, or like, I don't know, if my story or my theme for my druid is more about like the groves and the gardens and all of that, then Circle of the Land is going to be like, I'm a person who picks my subclass because of the character I'm playing, not because of the meta build. And so I do think that land is still viable for those reasons, but I might try to find a reason in my backstory to play this. I
just think that the sea...
The sea is more exciting to me.
The sea, yes. I have always been compelled by the sea. It calls to me.
What was do you know what a pirate's favorite letter is? I mean, we've already ruined the joke. The joke is you ask somebody what the pirate's favorite letter is, and they say R, and you say, actually, the sea was their first love.
Yes.
There. That's a joke for you. You're welcome.
It's just way more metal.
But this subclass isn't a C. Eh?
No, it's not a C.
No,
it's an A. It is an A.
A.
Yeah. Circle of the Stars. Okay. You get Star Map.
Star Map. It gives you guidance, and it gives you Guiding Bolt, and you can cast Guiding Bolt without expending a spell slot a number of times per day equal to your Wisdom modifier. Which is, I actually really like that because Guiding Bolt is such a great damage-dealing first-level spell, and you get to use it like a cantrip for a little bit.
Yeah. We also get a starry form. So it's a star form. You are a star.
Oh, any X fans out there? I'm a star. Anyway.
Yeah. You expend a wild shape as a bonus action to take up a constellation. It also ends if you're incapacitated. You choose Archer, Chalice, or Dragon when you do. The Archer lets you shoot radiant damage as a bonus action. The Chalice basically adds an extra heal to every heal you do. And the Dragon basically makes it so your concentration never breaks, but also helps you, gives you essentially reliable talent for intelligence and wisdom skills.
So every time that you go to turn into your starry form, you get to decide for that instance of it, am I going to be a blaster? Am I going to be a healer? Or am I going to do the play where either I'm a summoner or I'm throwing down that big concentration spell? And you get to pick the starry form that's going to represent that play style. And because druids can sort of change their spells every long rest, it kind of means that you get to set yourself up with the right spells to augment the starry form that you're going to prefer.
But like, okay, just with the Archer, right off the bat, we've got a really nice little blaster. Like, because you get into the Archer form, and you could be throwing Starry Wisp. You can choose the Nature's Fury option that adds your Wisdom mod to cantrip damage. So you're just kind of like shooting people with stars, and it's 2 attacks. It's decent damage, but Starry Wisp, Guiding Bolt, and the Archer form, you can also have a concentration spell rolling at the same time. So you can do Moonbeam plus Archer plus...
You could be guiding bolting and then
Yeah,
shooting two stars while a moonbeam's hanging out.
Yeah.
Not bad. You're a pretty decent blaster.
Like not bad. It's a decent extra blast.
At level 6, we get the Cosmic Omen. You get to roll a die after every long rest, and on evens, you can spend a reaction to add 1d6 to d20 tests. On odds, you subtract instead. So you are either buffing for your allies or debuffing for your enemies based on the stars' alignment that day.
Yeah.
I know that sometimes we take issue with the whole idea that, like, we don't like abilities where we don't get to choose, but it makes sense that, like, the stars aren't always aligned for you. And depending on how you're reading of the stars that day, both are useful.
Yes. On the one hand, in general, adding a d6 to a saving throw is usually the most impactful, as is subtracting a d6. So effectively what this is giving us is on evens, today you are giving out Bardic Inspiration on reactions.
Yeah.
Right? On odds, today you're debuffing enemy saving throws. Because you're probably going to, like, being able to use that to
You throw your moonbeam down and woe them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can also use it to make attacks miss, which is also quite valuable as well. Both are good. I wish that you got to choose, or you could do both.
I'm okay.
But I'll take it.
I'm okay with it. At level 10, though, we get probably my favorite feature for this whole subclass, Twinkling Constellation. This applies to your starry form. Your archer form is going to be doing additional damage. Your healing form, the Chalice, is going to be doing additional healing. And your dragon form now gives you a fly speed. But
sure.
But my favorite part, you can now choose your form at the beginning of every turn, every round. Which means no longer are you thinking, am I a blaster for this combat, or am I a healer, or do I want to be a flying, robust concentrator? You now get to choose what is going to work best. You could, now be careful though, you don't want to dragon yourself into a flying position and then switch and fall, but you could fly up to a vantage point with a concentration spell down, then switch to Archer and start blasting, and then one of your allies goes down and you switch to Chalice and get them back up.
Yeah.
So that's when I think the versatility of this subclass really dials up, is 10th level.
And then at 14th level, you're just resistant to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage regardless of your starry form. I like this subclass a lot. I also love the art for it too.
It's also some of the best art in the whole book.
So here's what's cool about this is this subclass in the form of its starry form is giving you an extra thing to do every turn.
Yeah.
In the form of usually the archer. I think that of the forms, I think that you're least likely to be regularly using the Chalice.
Yeah, I think that Archer's first, Dragon second, Chalice third.
Yeah, like, your general question is going to be, do I need to fly right now? Starting at level 10. I think until level 10, I think the only time I would go into Dragon is when I need to concentrate on a spell and it is... I must not lose my concentration on that.
Yeah.
I like that though.
Yeah.
It's just that you're probably going to take Warcaster and Resilient Constitution with many druids as it is. So like, but it is nice to have that assurance there. I think for the most part, the thing that offers me the most excitement here is the Archer Blaster.
Yeah.
Right. And I think what's cool about this is, you know what the Archer actually pairs really, really well with? Are the summon spells, because the summon spells don't demand your action or bonus action to usually command the summon around. So you summon like a fae or a beast, it's doing damage, you're doing damage, we're all doing damage
together,
right? Or again, you can do that thing where like you're doing a battlefield control effect and then also doing decent damage at the same time.
I think that this subclass is just, every ability is excellent and it builds on itself nicely.
Yeah.
It would be My absolute favorite. I mean, theme-wise, it's my favorite Druid subclass. Mechanics-wise, it would be my favorite subclass, and it would be up there in the S tier if it wasn't for one thing.
I think I know what this is.
This subclass is incredible, and I'm going to give it an A. The reason why it's not an S, it doesn't have an expanded spell list.
Yeah, it's the only druid that doesn't.
Now,
yeah, you get guidance and guiding. It feels like you got half an expanded spell list.
Guidance
not
and
even
guiding
half,
bolt,
actually.
that ability is great. I love the fact that like guiding bolt is a great damage dealing spell that we just get to cast for free probably 4 or 5 times.
Yeah, and you know, my only thing with guiding bolt is that like the advantage part rider of it is great.
Yeah.
Damage wise,
I think it's pretty good.
Okay. Here's the thing though. Starry Wisp is a D8.
Yeah.
Eventually Starry Wisp, especially if you're adding your wisdom mod to the damage, Starry Wisp is a cantrip that will eventually outscale the guiding bolt.
Fair.
Right? In terms of just pure direct damage, although guiding bolt gets a little bit better because it's setting up advantage for somebody else.
Yeah.
So you can end up in this position at the mid levels where it's like, do I Starry Wisp someone to hit them harder, or do I guiding bolt them to set my ally up for the next attack? It's still good either way.
And I think that also easily depends on like if you roll initiative and it's you and then the barbarian, you can easily guiding bolt.
Yeah. It just feels like it feels like the natural, like the rest of the spell list would have been Fairy Fire, and Moonbeam, and then I don't. From there, there's a bunch of spells that come to mind that are not in the player's handbook, like Sickening Radiance would have been really cool to have on here. Right, and there's a bunch of other ones that are like higher level, like Sunbeam, which druids get.
This makes me realize we need more like cosmic spells.
We do cosmic spells that aren't warlock related, right?
But either way, I think that's like there could have been a spell list here, and that would have made it like one of the best subclasses in the game. But I do think that it's still an A tier because everything here is exciting, it's fun, it's great. You're the best blaster druid, but you're also the best healer druid. I mean, healing is one of those things that like...
It's the only druid subclass that offers anything for a healer.
Yeah. And if you want to be... Like, this subclass works whether you want to be a summoner, a blaster, a healer. It works really well for all of those.
Yeah.
And so A tier.
I think it's... I agree. It's... In the one hand, the expanded spell list is... We're getting meaty features instead of the expanded spell list. I want both.
Why can't we have everything?
Yeah. But it's an A.
Yeah. If you look on the screen, you're going to see these are the final rankings we have for our druids. Again, nothing's bad here. I think the moon druid takes the cake, though.
The moon and the stars shine above the land and sea for me.
Yeah, but the sea is wrathful and beautiful. The land could use some work. We haven't gardened enough.
Yeah.
But the land is still, I want to be very specific on this, and we've said this several times. B is not a bad ranking. B is an excellent ranking. This is a functional subclass that's going to work.
Is the land boring? Is it a little boring? Like, having gone through now all of them, we started with the land.
The most exciting thing about the land is choosing your spell list, but even that doesn't feel as exciting as the stars, the sea, or the moon.
I feel like having now gone through the conversation, I'm like, what did the land do again? The land is I will admit, the land is the least exciting of these 4. Yeah.
The moon is super exciting. The stars is super exciting. The sea is super exciting.
Those are all undiscovered places that are so hard to explore. Maybe it's because like people as human beings,
I see land all the time.
It's like I want to go to
I
the
look out
bottom
my
of the
window
ocean.
and there's land.
I want to go to the moon. I want to go to the stars.
Yeah.
The land, I'm there every day.
And that's why it's a B. No, it's they're all good, and there is honestly a place where I would play the land, and we were talking about my druid idea for a character in a future campaign, and the land felt like the most appropriate option for it. But now I would try to twist that narrative to make it a C, probably.
Yeah.
But if you agree or disagree with our rankings, I want to hear all about it in the comments below.
The videos that we make on our channel are made possible thanks to the incredible generosity of our Patreon supporters. If you found this tier ranking useful or insightful, or disagree with us and want to let us know on our Discord, sign up for our Patreon. The links are down below.
And you can check us out playing some D&D right here on YouTube in our actual play in the Worlds of Drakenheim. You can check out all the previous episodes right up over here.
And we got plenty more tier rankings for all the 2024 subclasses right up over here.
Please subscribe to this channel, like this video, and ring that bell so that you never miss an episode.
Thanks so much for watching. See you next time
in the dungeon.